Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 10th BW Hotelier Breaking the Pandemic show. This time with five very, very special ladies, right? And the show is Acing Communications and the New Normal. I'm happy to share the same screen space with some of the finest and tallest names who've driven the industry literally from the back end, not from the back seat. And they've done a phenomenal job carrying their brands far and away and bringing real and true meaning to what the brands mean and what their companies do. Permit me to introduce the host of the show today, a name that we've often heard, looked up in awe, Deepa Misra Harris, the daughter of a fighter pilot, right? A Dehradun girl, married and settled in Mumbai. She's the founder and CEO of Brands We Love. What a beautiful name for a new company. For those of you who are new, Deepa was the head of sales and marketing for Taj Hotels, Palaces, Resorts, and Safaris. And she's led the way across 4 brands and 127 hotels worldwide, serving as the revenue and brand custodian. I wouldn't say much more than I have already. I shall leave it to Deepa to say more as she handles the show. The next online is Rakhi Lalwani, again from Mumbai. Rakhi now drives what Deepa drove. She's the Vice President, Public Relations and Corporate Communications for IHCL, or as we know as the Taj Group. Welcome to the show, Rakhi.
Thank you so much.
I shall now walk across from one end of the screen to the other to Khushnuma. Khushnuma is driving the portfolio for the Marriott hotels in India, all the brands. She's the area director of marketing for South Asia for Marriott International. Again, a Mumbai girl, married to a doctor. Am I right, Khushnuma? There you go. I have Rajyasree Sen, our lone compatriot from the NCR, right? So Rajyasree is a prolific writer. She's done a lot of marketing roles, but if you were to do some Google search on her, you'll see her doing some real creative work out there. Search for her. She is the Director of Global Communication for Hyatt in India. And you shall hear a lot more of her through the 90 minutes of the show. And the youngest of the lot. Where are you, Amisha? There. Okay, she's right in front of me in the center of the screen. NCR girl for a while, married and moved to Mumbai. She does Accor in India. All the brands that are there. She's the Director of Communications and PR for Accor in India and for South Asia. Without much ado, let me just say a few brief hygiene points over here. This is the 87th show for BW Business World and the 10th for BW Hotelier. We're doing a lot of content on video on screen. You shall hear a lot more as we go along over the next few months. Having said that, we do some very interesting content on the net, online, social media, everywhere. There are people over here from different organizations who do their own creatives. This is the content that we generate over here. None of them give us credit for what they do watching our screens. It'd be nice if they give us credit. If they don't, the world anyway knows. Over to you, Deepa.
Thank you, Bhuvnesh, for the kind introduction. I almost didn't recognize myself. But thank you also for inviting me to moderate this amazing panel of extremely accomplished marketing PR professionals. And allow me time to introduce them to our viewers, though they need no introduction as they are stars in their own category. So I'll start with Rakhi. The formal introduction is that she's currently the Vice President of Public Relations and Corporate Communications for Indian Hotels, which is the parent company for Taj and other brands like Vivanta, Selections, and Ginger. She has over 20 years of expertise in the hospitality industry. She's held several roles in sales and marketing at IHCL, and I can vouch for that. She was a star indeed because we worked together. She currently looks after the global PR and corporate communication needs for a portfolio of about 200 hotels, which includes 42 under development, and is in charge of enhancing and protecting the global image of the company. She has successfully executed integrated branding initiatives in global markets, various parts of Europe, America, Southeast Asia, all the markets that feed into the Taj Group. She's also responsible for positioning the Taj hotels in the global markets. She has been managing reputational issues, developing appropriate communication responses to diffuse and or avert crises for the Taj. She was also part of the crisis team that handled the 26/11, terrorism attack. And she was responsible, along with the team, for the successful launch of the Taj Mahal Palace, Mumbai, post-restoration, which is also now a Harvard business case study. In her free time, Rakhi enjoys reading and traveling and exploring different cultures and history and cuisine. So that's Rakhi for you. Definitely a stalwart in the industry. Then I come to Khushnuma Kapadia, another iconic woman, and we're very proud of what she's done in the hospitality industry. She has an impressive career spanning 20 years. Khushnuma has worked with renowned organizations, both in the finance and communication sector. She worked with Arthur Andersen and Good Relations Private Limited. Then in 2000, I think in 2004, she joined Marriott. She was the winner of the Women's Leadership Achievement Award by the World Women's Congress, and also amongst the 50 most talented CMOs in India, ranked by World Marketing Congress, and 50 most talented CMOs by Easy Diner in 2017. So that's quite a sterling achievement. In her 16 years tenure with the company, Khushnuma has led the marketing and brand roadmap, as well as launched multiple new properties within the Marriott portfolio in India. She manages all 16 brands in the Marriott International portfolio present in India and is responsible for the strategic growth of these brands under the consortium. Khushnuma now leads 134 operating hotels in South Asia. She's pioneered several campaigns which were ahead of their times and have gone beyond the otherwise traditional hospitality landscape. Articulate, intelligent, self-motivated, she encourages a healthy work-life balance and continues to reinvent and push boundaries and set new benchmarks in the business and marketing arena. So that's Khushnum. Welcome, Khushnum, to the panel.
Thank you.
Then we come to Rajshri Sen, Director, Global Communications, Hyatt India. She has a very diverse background, and which is very interesting. Rajshri Sen currently heads corporate communications for Hyatt Hotels in India. As Director, Global Communications, she has diverse experience from outside the hospitality industry. She's a columnist who has written in media on politics and pop culture for Mint, ET, Indian Express, First Post, News Laundry, and Wall Street. Wall Street Journal. She's also scripted some of the top food and travel shows on Fox and History Channel. Rajshri also ran a Bengali and Anglo-Indian restaurant in Delhi for 3 years and is writing a book on the history and cultural influences on Indian sweets for Aleph. With almost 20 years of PR experience, she's handled consumer brands, hotels, industry bodies, and specializes in image management, CSR, and crisis communications. So welcome, Rajshri, to the panel as well. Now we come to the youngest of the panel of the accomplished ladies, Amisha Gudgutia, Director, PR and Communications, India and South Asia, Accor. She's a seasoned communications professional with over a decade's industry experience. Amisha has deep expertise in leading end-to-end communication campaigns and managing guest loyalty in the hospitality space. She began her career journey at Accor in the role of Manager for Communications and Loyalty Program in 2014 and played an instrumental role in giving Accor a remarkable thrust and visibility in India. She has also achieved many outstanding feats for the Loyalty Club in the region, garnering greater prominence for the program and making it a success. Prior to joining Accor, Amisha has worked with renowned hospitality brands such as The Park and the Surya. In her free time, she loves outdoor activities like cycling with friends, long walks, and Sunday brunches. We can't agree with you more. So welcome, Amisha, to the panel. And I'm very, very happy to have such an amazing lot of women on the panel, and I wonder why there were no men. So I think we can blame Bhuvnesh for that. So, very warm welcome. I just wanted to kind of touch upon the topic because I think we just need some contextual setting. It would not be wrong to say that currently, for most people, COVID-19 has rendered 2020 to be the stuff of dystopian nightmares coming true. And we all know the global pandemic has infected nearly 4.4 million people worldwide. Traveler numbers are low by 94%. Business travel may not recover in the short to medium term. By June, we had 189 countries that had closed borders and there was travel restrictions. So it's obviously impacted the travel and hospitality industry in a really bad way. And I think in that context, there's no playbook for even the most prepared communication professional to follow. So in that context, I just wanted to say that when we were discussing the topic, the question that we asked ourselves, how will communication professionals be changing strategies, messages, and audience perceptions in this current scenario? And as you would expect, reactions from brands have been varied, from ultra-conservative to very liberal. Brands that have remained empathetic, relevant, and considerate have fared better than their peer group. One can stop to question, when will we get back to normal? That is the way things were. I think the unfortunate answer is never. So we have to start creating the new normal. As public relations and marketing professionals, we realize things have changed. With the media focused solely on the pandemic, many brands have shifted communications online, and I think this is our largest opportunity. There are more and more people on their devices, and you have their attention. And revenue generation happens really one room, $1 or yen at a time. So now is the time for people like you to make a difference. And between yesterday and today, there are many, many moments of opportunities that you must seize. So it's time to seize the day. And now this session is going to be for 90 minutes. 60 minutes will be taken in question and answers. And I think we leave about 30 minutes at the end to take viewer questions. Now tell me, I would like to ask this of all of you. How has it been for you? How's this working from home? Is it your thing, or are you dying to get back to office? So I will start with Rakhi. What do you feel, Rakhi? You've had 100 days of almost, isolation.
So initially, of course, it was amazing because it felt like a dream come true to be able to work out of home, get up late, work in your pajamas and all of that. But the luster wore off very quickly because, your days there was no compartmentalizing. It just went on and on. And one didn't really get a break as such. One is working very long hours. I don't know if you're being half as productive, but the hours are long. But I would still say it's not been bad because you do have some semblance of a routine which you can follow if you're at home. So there are some advantages and some disadvantages. And in my case, I've learned how to cook. After graduating from hotel management, I should know how to cook, but I'd forgotten all of that. So I've tested my cooking skills during this pandemic. So all in all, not bad, Deepa. It's been okay.
Now, Krishnama, what about you?
I found myself in a very, very precarious situation when this whole work from home was, just sprung upon us. It just suddenly came as a bolt from the blue, to be really honest with you. And it's not just the ecosystem of your life that changed. It's the ecosystem of everybody that is attached to you. And as a consequence of that, all four of us were in the house at the same time. We suddenly had to adapt to a work from home, operating digitally. You couldn't really see each other face to face. You were put in a scenario where there was so many uncertainties around the business that were really being thrown upon you. Then you had children who were doing schooling from home. So yeah, it was very complex. I would be honest enough to say that I didn't really take to work from home as easily as maybe my colleagues did. And I really found it distracting because I felt like I was getting pulled into many, many directions. But I do believe that human resilience wins over all situations. And I think when you're placed in a situation, there's nothing you can do but just adapt to it. So it's been more than 100 days now. And like Rakhi said, a routine has set. We've set a pace for ourselves. And yeah, we've started adapting to it. And I would say now, to some extent, even enjoying the entire process. Would I like to go back to my routine? Most certainly. I would certainly like to go back to the way life was. But I'm equally cognizant of the fact that life's going to change post-COVID. So ready to bring it on, whatever life has to bring on from now on.
No, I completely understand that, because, when you're used to about 12-hour working days and suddenly you get this time where it's not kind of moderated for you, as in meetings and, various things that you do at work, it can be very, very tough. But I think these are life lessons and we have to learn to adapt. So that's very, very well put. So Rajshri, what about you?
I love work from home purely because for around, I think, 8 years of my life, I've been an independent consultant, juggling many clients. I've run my own business. So I'm very used to structuring my day so that it's really structured well. I also think you can be far more productive sitting at home because you can balance out what needs to be done at home and you can do your work. And you don't feel like, oh, I have to rush back to get something done at home. But I think that's also by virtue of me having done this for so long before I had joined Hyatt. So in between my work with agencies as in Genesis and IPAN and all, where we worked in office, and then running a restaurant and being an independent consultant, and then again going back to an office, I've been able to adjust really well. And I think what we did very well is that every morning we used to have a leadership, and we still have a leadership team meeting on Zoom. So you actually end up, I keep telling everyone, I end up talking to more people than I was talking to when I was going into office, because we were all doing our own work then, but every morning we do this meeting now, and it's been happening for 100 days. I think some of us might be a little fed up of seeing each other's faces now, but we do it. But that also brings in a little structure, right? And it makes you feel like the team is together, rallying through what is happening, because it is a very difficult situation. And so I think my ease is more because I've done it before. So I found it very easy to structure it again like that. And so I work with the Zurich office and the Chicago office. So ours are anyway a little stretched. But I do agree that when you're at home, and also because it's a crisis period right now, there's like, it's not like at 9 o'clock, it's not that 9 p.m. work finishes. It just carries on and on and on. So that can be a little testing. But again, I'm saying I think it's because of my past way of working from home that I'm used to structuring things myself. So that's what, thankfully, it's a learning from before, which has helped.
I think anyone who's done an entrepreneurial stint would be easy with it. But I think going forward, a lot of companies are going to actually adopt this as a new norm because them find a lot of value in doing something like that. So Amisha, what about you?
So Deepa, for me, honestly, in the beginning, it was quite hard. I'm someone who loves going to office, so waking up in the morning, getting ready and, heading out. Also, the first 3 months of the year, I actually traveled to the corporate office, which is in Gurgaon, which meant, meeting the larger team, getting to, just be with everyone. But this meant, being limited to home and being homebound with absolutely no help, and juggling between, your home chores and then, managing crisis, which obviously had no hours, which meant, there could be an email coming in at 9 o'clock in the evening, and you need to respond to it. But I guess, like, we human beings are quite resilient, and we always find a way to adapt to our situations. So that's exactly what's happened, and I'm now completely at peace with how life is, and how the day flows. And I guess we always find a way of managing things, and finding peace in how the situation around us is. And that's exactly what's happened to me. Yeah, and life has all been about Zoom calls, about online meetings, pretty much.
So at the moment, if I was to ask you the next question, what keeps you awake at night?
I'm really waiting for the world to start traveling again without, with seamless boundaries. So that's what I'm waiting to see. That's what's keeping me awake. And
Rakhi, I can quite imagine what has been keeping you awake. but let me ask you. Yeah.
So, well, nothing exciting keeps me awake at night, unfortunately. I do sleep mercifully, but yes, I mean, one has the crisis and occasional. But I think for me, what's most important before I go to bed, Deepa, is to know that that I've done right by whether it's my family or my friends or my organization, and I haven't hurt anyone and I haven't done anything wrong. And we all make mistakes, and when I do make those mistakes, those are the nights that I'm awake. But otherwise, mercifully, I sleep. So
Good. Coming back to Krishnama, what would you say? What keeps you awake at night?
Deepa, I'm going to answer this in two parts actually. What did keep me awake at night? I sleep very well now, to be honest. But if you'd asked me a question in January where you would have said, where do you see yourself 5 years down the line, I would have had that answer packed down. And then March happened to us, and the entire axis of our life pretty much shifted. So what really kept me awake at night is the fact that I had no knowledge of where things were moving, and the entire bubble of uncertainty that we were all operating within. And also you have huge responsibilities, right? You have professional responsibilities, you have personal responsibilities, and the reality is that every decision that you're making is going to have some kind of a ramification or some kind of an impact on the business, on your life, on your children. And the reality is you are operating or you are navigating in a scenario where you don't know whether your decisions are going to be right or wrong. But you're going to hypothecate, you're going to take everything from your experience and everything from your instinct, and then take a decision, and then hopefully you're going to throw that ball in the air, and you're going to hope that it lands up somewhere. So the uncertainty of whether those decisions that I was taking professionally, personally, the strategic roadmaps that we were creating, were they going to pan out to benefit the brand, to benefit my life? Yeah, that really kept me awake at night. Many, many nights, I would say. But I think peace has settled, to be honest. And like Rakhi said, mercifully, I sleep well now. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
good. That's good to hear, but I totally agree with you that these are uncertain times, and you don't know how to navigate them because there is no rule book. Rakshi, what about you?
Anyway. But otherwise, I think work has been difficult because you are just, so I've navigated an epidemic crisis before for two other very large clients, but it's just that you feel bad about the situation that is happening in the industry. You don't see when that is going to get better because we really don't know what is happening with this virus. So I wouldn't say it keeps me up at night, but it's definitely a worry, and not just for our industry for sure, because we are so directly impacted by this. And it will have a domino effect across companies, across the industry. And that does play on your mind a little bit. Also, because you don't see the government stepping in quickly enough, you don't know what the next step is going to be. But otherwise, I think it would be more the insomnia than anything else. But there is a constant worry, of course, that you just want things to get back to at least a semblance of normalcy, because the economy is going to tank. It's just the way it is, and it's going to take a while for things to stabilize. So
yeah, it kind of brings me to the next question that, there are many organizations that are really struggling with the communication piece.
yeah.
In the sense, there are some that are giving out the wrong messaging. It's more about how many people they've laid off, and they're not being able to control the social media around it and all the circus around it and so on. So it's almost as if they're in shock and looking for their, industry or, representatives to give them a voice. However, some hotel brands have been very proactive in controlling the narrative and managing it and keeping the customer at the core of their messaging. Tell me, is there anyone that you have felt, and this doesn't have to be your brand, but anyone that you feel that has done a great job? Somebody who's handled the communications, really well during the pandemic?
So I would say I can't really pinpoint any specific brand who's done a smack up good job about this, because I think everyone's also been reacting as things have been happening, because no one realized when lockdown would kick in, what lockdown will allow, what is going to happen after that. But I think the brands which have handled it best are people, and I think that's something which Hyatt does a lot of, and that's just the way I've always worked. So that was my advice also, and we've done this globally as well, that you talk when there's something to talk about. Do not have knee-jerk reactions. Be as transparent as you possibly can be. And it is a tough situation right now. So there is going to be some negative press, and especially because of the industry we are in and the fact that we have brick and mortar hotels that people come into. This is a communicable disease. There are going to be cases. How do you handle that? And I think as long as you handle things with empathy, and your guests and your colleagues see that there are systems in place, and everyone internally and when we are communicating externally are being open and honest and transparent and not like trying to fudge facts over here, you will be able to control your messaging. There will always be some criticism, and that is something, even when there is criticism, unless it is incorrect information, you should be able to deal with it through a conversation and dialogue. So I think what is important is that as long as you've been honest, transparent, and you have been wise about don't talk unless there's something to talk about in this situation. I really think that is advisable.
No, I totally get that. Amisha, tell me, would you be able to give an example or somebody you feel, again, it doesn't have to be somebody, you don't have to be your spokesperson right now.
Right. So, Deepa, for me, it's not a brand, but it is this person, Vikas Khanna, who started the Feed India initiative. And, sitting in New York, he's already distributed over 22 million meals. I think he's done a phenomenal job. And obviously, there are teams behind him, supporting him to do this. They're using social media as one of their main channels to communicate about the initiative. It's obviously been a combination of proactive and reactive work that the team's done. And I think just the way he's been covered and I think the way he's been driving his passion, that to me comes as a good example of, how sometimes honesty and things driven out of passion can go so far.
Very well put, because even I was thinking of him other than one more person who I really admire, but I'll come to that. Rakhi, what about you?
So at the cost of sounding self-serving, but I don't want to take a company like the Tatas for granted, because I think what Tatas and IHCL did, they were at the forefront of everything. They were the first one to come out and commit about 1,500 crores, I think it is, to the PM's fund, and of course to combating the pandemic. They helped with ventilators, they helped with PPP kits. Indian Hotels, again, was at the forefront. We've delivered almost 2.5 million meals to doctors, to health workers, to even migrant workers. We've hosted doctors, we've hosted nurses in many of our hotels in Bombay. So I think Tata's, and of course within Tata's Indian Hotels, has really been out there, being there for community, which is what they always believe in. It's pretty much our philosophy. And I would say that, even though I work for them, it's truly inspirational what they do. And we're all immensely proud. And that, Deepak, obviously changed the narrative, because from gloom and doom, we wanted to take charge. And we took charge because we were doing this because it was right, and it was driven by, who we are and the values that we believe in. And we went out there and we were there for our community. And that's what also changed the narrative. But it wasn't by design, it was only driven by our values. So immense sort of admiration for Tatas and of course Indian Hotels.
No, I was going to say that because I think, the whole community outreach was spectacular and tremendous. I mean, and it is so core to the, Tata's brand belief.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's almost expected that they would step in and do it, and they did.
True.
So, I mean, there's no surprise there, but there's an immense amount of gratitude.
That's true.
Kushnuma, I must say that you are very, very lucky also, because when I saw Arne Sorensen's first video, which he put out to his people, I thought that was a really, really absolutely wonderful piece of communication that anybody could have made, So I think that was, one of my favorites as well. One is that I would really stack up leaders like that, because if like Tata's lead the path, I mean, he really actually led it for the hospitality industry. What would you have to say other than your own brand, or if you want to speak about that?
I'm just gonna touch a little bit about my brand first, and then of course talk about some other inspirational work. I truly respect the work that most of my colleagues actually on this panel have done. The entire hospitality industry has come as one unified force, and irrespective of the fact that the industry took a significant beating, so to speak, as a consequence of this pandemic. I think just brands like Marriott, IHCL, Hyatt, everybody put themselves out there to just do a lot of communities outreach. And I think that in itself is such a huge platform to really showcase the fact that you're out there for people, you're out there for the community, you're out there for service. And service can take many, many connotations. It's not just about sampling a 5-star hotel. It's also being out there and helping the underprivileged and helping people who genuinely were in need. And I think a lot of brands like Marriott and Taj have done a significantly commendable job in this space. So yeah, hats off to the hospitality industry, I would think. Just to wear a different hat, I think brands in different categories. For example, Emirates in the aviation sector, they did a brilliant job. Nike has done a brilliant job in getting out there with very fast moving, with the kind of agility that these brands can really be proud of. Getting out there, putting awareness videos, putting out campaigns, absolutely entrenching their strategy in terms of customer engagement across social media networks. To me, that has been an exemplary showcasing of what brands can do to really connect and to really eyeball with their consumers in times of crisis. And I truly appreciate the fact that they are fast. They're moving, clearly decision making within their organizations must be happening at a rapid pace. And I think they really managed to capture their audience at a fairly fast pace. And I think that's what's very admirable about some of the brands. And I really appreciate the work that they do in that space.
Absolutely. Now, if I was to I'll skip the next question, because I think in some ways you guys have answered it, which is basically that the current crisis has allowed many people the opportunity to pause and rethink their priorities. What's the new learning you've had personally or professionally? I mean, if any one of you wants to take that on, please do so. So is there somebody who's thought about it? Has anything changed for you personally or professionally? Have there been new learnings in this whole crisis before I get on to the biggest challenge you face today?
I'll take that, Deepa. I think what the crisis has really taught us is recalibration. Like Rajeshri said, very rightly so. Great strategy also comes in the fact that you evaluate when you stay quiet, when is the right time to communicate. And sometimes it's not just about selling. Sometimes it's about showing empathy through all the communication construct that you do. making sure that you make your consumer, making sure that you make the guest who has endorsed you heavily in your happier times, to tell them that we're thinking of them in their times of crisis. And so it's not just about pushing your brand in your face. I think it's also about evaluating when is the right time to communicate and what is the right message. So yeah, I think that's been a big learning. Sometimes you're very eager to get out there with everything that you have to really talk about, but in times like this, you need to exercise the right quotient of sensitivity in your communication, and I think that's been a very big learning. I think what has really transpired as a consequence of this is the advent of digital media. A lot of us operate between traditional and digital in our marketing mix, but clearly it's been lopsided, and so we've all had to don hats where we've had to have an overnight learning in this space and just reorient your execution strategy to making sure that you're completely engaging with your customer through the right marketing channels, through the right networks. What is the right strategy to communicate a marketing campaign across social media? All of this needs a reorientation of thought, because you've clearly had very well laid out plans that have been completely swept under the table, and you've now suddenly got to make new plans with a new strategy in a very short span of time. So I think the agility and the quickness with which you need to move in a time like this and make sure that you capture the timeliness is what crisis taught me professionally, for sure.
Rakhi, would you want to talk about what was your strategy? Did you work to your plan, or were you reacting to the evolving situation? So that is something that I'd want you to share with people, because did you have a plan in place immediately after? I mean, I know that the Taj goes into a war room kind of situation where you start to plan, but were you evolving your strategy as you were going along, or what was it?
Pretty much, like you said, it was evolving as we went along, because we had nothing to refer to. There was no reference in history. There have been pandemics, there have been sort of crisis. There's been MERS and SARS before that, and Ebola, etc. But nothing that's really paralyzed the world the way it has today. So therefore, there were no references, no documentation to go by. So one was really evolving your plan as we went along. And I think each time the compass that we had was, we need to make sure that we are communicating with our stakeholders. We're ensuring that, our priorities shifted, like you asked Kushrima before, definitely from what it was to ensuring the number one priority became the safety and security of all our stakeholders, including our guests and employees, and communicating that, in a transparent fashion. So that was important to do, as we went along. And of course, engaging with the stakeholders throughout, with empathy and transparency, pretty much telling them what the situation was and how you were reacting to it. That became quite imperative as we went along. The plans kept evolving, but we never lost our optimism. And of course, we had to factor in agility, like Kushrima also said, where we had to rethink our entire business plan to a reset. We said, now this is a pause, now we reset, and we look at what we need to do for the next 6 to 9 months, whether it's in terms of revenues, whether it's in terms of, just managing your financials, or just recalibrating everything that you're doing, even in operations. So everything went through a reset, and we too in communications had to go through a reset. And personally, of course, one went through a very trying phase, because we've never dealt with a situation where you don't know what the outcome is, and you're totally not in control of what's happening. You have you're in a helpless situation. So I think that one thing that the pandemic has taught me is to be patient, and to be accepting of the current situation, and to work around it and to navigate around it and come with the best outcome. So therefore, I think we've pushed our creativity a lot more as a result. And Indian Hotels has been sort of doing some really interesting things, like we just introduced our food delivery app called Qmin, which we wouldn't have accelerated to the pace that it has been today if it wasn't for the pandemic. So new innovations, new solutions, new alternatives, and basically a complete reset of strategy to ensure that you at least mitigate or, you know, sort of minimize the challenges ahead of you and minimize the, you know, the impact that it could have.
You know, I was just thinking how collaborative it was, because in the first phase, you had people who were like, you know, all hotels were talking about their position on cancellation fees, on refunds and guidelines for COVID. And then, you know, they were going into the loyalty piece where they were giving extensions on points and no expiration of points. So you move from setting your guidelines on refunds, cancellations, and all of that, to then going and saying that, you know, how do we kind of make ourselves, our standards safe for our customers? And then you move to the full online piece, bringing your craft into the customer homes. So that was really brilliant, because I was just thinking that if you look at Hyatt with their global care and cleanliness commitment, then you have the Four Seasons that have come up with a hygiene officer. Then they've got John Hopkins on their advisory board. And then you have, you know, it's almost going to be like when travelers are traveling, they're going to have to look for, you know, not TripAdvisor rankings, but accreditation. So I'm coming to Rajshri. So the thing there is, it's almost as if the gold standard has become a cleaning arms race, you know, like who's better than the other person, who's got more accreditation. But what it does is collectively, it gives guests a real sense of security and safety. And I think it's brilliant how all the hotel chains have moved in that whole evolution strategy, moved the same path. So now over to you, Rajshri, and then I'll come to Amisha to tell me about yours.
I just wanted to say that, so I've handled 2 crises before, which were epidemics, which was the avian flu crisis for a pharma company and for a chicken production company, which I can talk about, which is KFC, but the other one is confidential one. So one was making the vaccine for avian flu. The other was directly affected in the sense that their produce was affected, right? What they are selling. And what I learned at that time from from KFC is that you have to, which is what I was saying, that you have to be transparent in your communication, but more than that, you need to educate the customer. So the fact that, you know, that when you cook chicken at a certain temperature, or anything Indian, honestly, our cooking is at such a high temperature that you kill any virus that is there. But people don't understand that till you educate them. So to educate in a clear manner, and to also start preparing yourself for different situations that can arise. I think 2 months down the line, it's almost 3 months now, right? Down the line, but within 1.5 months, we had mapped out various situations that could affect the hospitality industry, who we need to communicate with, what we need to communicate to them. And we had those factors in place, which could then be customized to, because things were still changing. You couldn't possibly predict every situation. So I think that kind of crisis management, where you at least, it's more crisis preparedness than management, because the managing happened as the situation evolved. But I do feel we are on much firmer footing right now. So there's less of, oh my God, we have to draw up a statement now, this is a new situation. We have pretty much tried and mapped out what could happen. But when what I felt that this pandemic has managed to do is that sanitation levels across 5-star hotels are very high. I think that is something which guests, the reason they take that for granted when they come to any 5-star hotel, right? But the fact that we had put what you said, the global care and cleanliness commitment, we have a hygiene and well-being leader, basically a trained person at every hotel, who is supposed to oversee what is all the cleanliness measures that we are taking. And that was put into place, that within a month of this pandemic happening, we started home deliveries across our hotels, which were open. And Hyatt Regency Delhi opened its own, they have their own website for deliveries 3 of our hotels do their deliveries themselves. We don't outsource deliveries to Zomato and Swiggy and so on, because those hotels have the infrastructure to send out cars with your food and so on. But I think that innovation that Sandy kicked in, which is really good, that this pushed everyone to now think beyond what we are usually used to in the hotel space, that you will have these vacations will happen, then you will have journalists will come and experience this. You managed to start thinking out of the box. Of course, it would be nicer to have had to think out of the box without a pandemic breathing down your neck. That is the sad part. But I think we've all innovated, and it's quite interesting to see. Also, there's a lot of positive messaging going out, which is very nice. There is no, unlike in other industries where I've seen one company pulling down another company to show themselves as better, none of that has happened in the hospitality industry. People have bandied together in that sense across the different chains. So I think the learnings are in that, and also the fact that you've just innovated and cleanliness standards are at an all-time high, which is a good thing, because this is a new world now that where we are going to be and working with doctors. So you don't want people to think they're walking into a hospital, but it's at least luxury, which is very, very safe, as safe as we can possibly make it for guests.
Amisha, what about you? Do you want to?
So Deepa, for us, after this pandemic, we actually came up with a broad strategy, an overall broad strategy. We worked with specific groups. We also had specific groups in mind. And, we had regular team briefings. We ensured that, we adapted to the situation quickly. We kept ourselves agile. The plan was kept simple. It was pointed. And that kind of enabled us to lend support to the hotels, to the teams and the corporate teams, which were taking care of many other functions. This was a time when actually digital channels really came in and helped us remain connected to our customers. So whether it was about being connected to our all members, our core plus members, or even our teams, I think digital media really came in to support us, in this endeavor. We were even able to deliver, IBIS gigs. So music is one of the passion points for the IBIS brand. And in 2019, we'd done a series of gigs across all IBIS hotels. And this year, we did not let the pandemic stop that. We actually did the gig every Friday, and we were able to deliver this online experience to our customers through Instagram and Facebook. It's really been a hard journey, and I think recovering from this pandemic for the hospitality industry is going to be hard. But yeah, slowly and surely, we are definitely going to recover. For us at Accor, we've come up with the All Safe label, which is essentially our cleanliness and prevention standards. We have an All Safe officer, a designated All Safe officer at all our hotels. And of course, innovation is going to be key. So whether it's food deliveries, coming up with DIY kits, or innovating when it comes to online experiences that you take home to the customer to make sure that, they remember you. I think those things will become the order of the day.
You're right. The differentiation will really come from rich content. And, Marriott's Meals on Wheels and Cumin, Taj is bringing their iconic restaurants, the cuisine home into their customers' homes. And then there's entertainment, like you said, the gigs that you're doing. I think this is tremendous. And this is really bringing a lot of value to the guests. And this is what is going to really knit guests to those hotel brands, because they'll feel the resonance with those brands and they'll be loyal to those brands. Because at the moment, anybody who's adding value and enriching their lives, they're differentiating themselves. So now to come back to a very broad kind of subject, and I'm asking any of you to kind of come in with this, is what do you think has changed with regard to travel and hotels for the future? And I mean more in terms of trends or consumer insights. Who would like to take that?
So I think the rebound and the revival phase and eventually the thrival phase will really depend on domestic tourism for the short to medium term, until, of course, borders open and international flights are allowed. And within domestic tourism, we are already seeing trends of, people taking short vacations in terms of driving holidays and just going to nearby places. So I think driving holidays and road trips will sort of emerge as a big trend. Going forward, I think wellness will be another big trend because there's going to be a lot of focus on health and well-being. So we feel that that's something that, which will be very interesting to see as a segment. It'll definitely grow. Family vacations, again, bonding together and choosing to stay in. So like we have options like Ama Stays and Trails, which are individual bungalows where you can, with your entire family, just book the entire bungalow. So these kind of stays in offbeat locations, I think over-tourism is going to be completely out. Over-tourism locations, the hotspots are going to be out of fashion. It's going to be the secluded, offbeat kind of places where people feel safer and that it's, more open, less crowded. So that's going to be another trend that one sees. Another very interesting trend that we're seeing today is that people are choosing to work from hotels and resorts, from actually sort of, they can, technically you can go to the Bahamas and sit there and work with your laptop if you're connected on the Wi-Fi. So that's another interesting trend that I think the pandemic has brought about, which I think will benefit hospitality. So that's working from hotels and working from resorts. It's a dream. I wish I could do that from Goa, but I don't know if I'll be allowed. So, but that's a big trend that's growing. Yeah, so these are some of the things that, I thought we should highlight. The other big thing, Deepa, is that there is a potential 25 million outbound tourism available to us, which obviously may not be the same number in terms of statistics because of the economy, but it's still potential for domestic tourism and to even look at segments like, weddings that were going outside India, MICE that was going outside India, leisure, of course. And that is something that I think we should capitalize as an industry as a whole, by actually pushing people to, come back and rediscover their own country in so many various ways and such wonderful destinations and hotels that we all have. So I think that's another big, huge opportunity that we see.
No, I totally agree, because I think the spotlight's on wellness, because people are going to be into mindful travel.
Yeah.
And there are brands that talk about the slow life, which is very, very good because it's more organic, natural, rare, because that's not what you get when you're in cities like Bombay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who were ahead of their times who did that, people who care about sustainability, pioneers of sustainability, hotel companies that really kind of, believe in that.
Yeah.
So shared economy, for example, Airbnb was doing so well, but now because people want to be private, they want to fly in a private jet, be in a private villa, that too will do well, because hotels that have those facilities will do well as well, because people want to be just with friends and family and do not want too much air travel time unless it can be their own jet or something. So that's a very minuscule, of course, population. But what you said about conversions of domestic tourism into, international tourism into domestic would be a big opportunity. So, Krishnamma, you were wanting to say something.
Yeah, well, Rakhi's pretty much covered, most of what I was really going to touch upon. But I think we'll all have in a very big way. I think the hospitality landscape has always been predominantly traditional in the way we've really operated across all our touch points. But I think with this entire shift, it's been a paradigm shift. It's been a paradigm shift in the way we've approached so many things and so many facets across a hotel. I think what is really going to change is the fact that there's going to be an advent of technology in a very big way. And I think how fast we're going to absorb technology into our skeleton of the hotel or skeleton of the property is really going to be the defining factor, which will distinguish, how you're going to be perceived. Because that, according to me, is going to be the key as we move forward.
As will technology and marketing strategies, because now people have
Absolutely.
got to delivery of that kind, so you have to raise the bar to the next level. So
because everything, sorry Deepa, everything's become contactless, right? The
Yes.
whole contactless process is going to bring about technology in a very, very big way. So which is where you've got to deliver to the promise. And I just want to add something to Rajeshri. What Rajeshri touched upon earlier is that if we really want to resuscitate travel and tourism in the country, I think all of us need to come as a unified force across each of our brands. I think each of our brands is doing spectacular work, to really bring that customer journey to life and to make sure that we are living up to the promise. But we'll all have to come together as a unified force to make sure that we're bringing things to the table which is going to resuscitate travel and bring confidence in it all over again.
Yeah, so which actually brings me to the point that the crisis coupled with the recession is a double whammy. So going forward, the biggest challenge for you will be, as marketing and communication practitioners, is generating demand. So this is really, really important. And to what you said, maybe you could have collaborations, where you could actually move from saying, we stand for the best cleaning standards and all of that, because that'll become a given. How do you differentiate yourself? Because, now people are saying internally, there are jokes going around that cleaning protocols are the new marble bathrooms. So, I mean, and also, look at how people are changing their strategy. I mean, Noma, the famous restaurant, is becoming a burger joint. Now, why? Because he's changed his business strategy. He's understood what is going to be the new way of dining. And it doesn't stop him from doing that. So I think many, many lessons to be learned about what's happening, in the world, and to be really agile to be able to convert that into and leverage that into, actual strategies that will deliver demand for you. Are there any other points that you would like to raise? Because I know we're reaching, in about 3 minutes, we'll have reached an hour. So what is the future of communications in a post-COVID world?
Okay, so I think one is that you need to instill, once things start normalizing a little bit, they haven't yet, start instilling confidence in the guest that we are a safe place to come to and it is a safe haven. But always be communicating that you are never going to be finding us lacking in luxury, because that is what people come to hotels for. You're not coming for just health and hygiene and everyone's in PPE outfits, right? You will get the same luxury, but it will be at an elevated level of sanitation and hygiene. The best of efforts are being made. So I think that communication will need to start going out more and more. The fact that hotels are going to be able to customize the experience to you. So speaking of Hyatt, I just want to say, that we have reimagined experiences now. Your dining experience is going to no longer just be in a restaurant. If you want a private dining in a suite, we are doing that at our hotels. If you want the buffet, which everyone is very wary of right now, right? That you go to the buffet, people pick up dinner rolls, put them back, everyone's touching those spoons. So at Hyatt Place, Banjara Hills, they are serving the buffet in individual portions to people. Now, these were things you saw in standalone, very high-end restaurants usually, that you had a sit-down buffet at your table. Then the fact that weddings can be intimate, because now we have an upper limit of 50 people, right, at weddings, which is unheard of in India. I don't think people in Delhi don't throw parties with less than 75 people. So that you are able to say that we are still going to give you that same experience. You're not going to be lacking in anything. So the ability for a hotel to customize and innovate and reimagine the experience that they give a guest, that needs to be communicated, because there has to be a reason why people will come back to you. And you know, this work thing, that you can come to our hotels and work. We will give you a safe place to work, which is outside home, like Khushnuma was saying. And I don't have children, so it's very easy for me to work at home, but I have dogs, which you can hear, I think. But you know, that you have a safe, luxurious place to work. It's something which people, offices, individuals are looking for. And across our hotels, at least, we have different, you know, again, it's that innovation that we will keep innovating to try and give the guest what they need. And I think the other thing that is always a way of building trust is to let people know that our own colleagues are working in these hotels. They would not be working there if it wasn't safe. So the amount of care we are taking, our general managers live in the hotels, so with their families. So the fact that that is happening, that needs to be communicated. These are things which we take for granted in the hospitality. One knows, but people don't know these things, right? That if it's safe for us to work there, it is safe for you to come in and let us look after you. So that communication needs to go out. And I think that is where things will change. Things we took for granted, that, oh, people know this about hotels. No, they don't know these things about hotels. And we need to communicate that.
Yeah. So I think, you know, we're going to wrap it up now for questions that we will take. But I just wanted to say two things, that the recovery strategy has to be twofold. Firstly, it calls for strong leadership. So that I can see on the screen, and credible communication, both internal and external. Also, I think beyond the fragility of the way life is panning out right now, we have this huge golden opportunity to discover new ideas, rethink our old assumptions, and create new magic. So I hope all of you have my best wishes, and I can wish you only the best. And I want to see a recovery soonest from all the brands. So, I mean, it'll make me really, really happy. Over to Bhuvnesh. I think we have some questions there, about 8-10 questions.
We have quite a few questions between here and Facebook. So this first one comes from Vikram Kota. If those of you know Vikram Kota, I'm sure he's the same one who heads GRT.
Okay.
Will the hotels rework on the pricing strategies and distribution strategies in the new era?
Of course, we're going to be very cognizant of how the market really eventually develops and eventually unfolds after this entire pandemic is over. We're going to be keeping into consideration how travel is going to move, how travel is going to pan out. These are very early days. Currently, the country is still in a state of staggered lockdown, with some cities opening up, some cities. So, of course, we will evaluate. We will be very mindful of the market, and then accordingly devise an entire pricing and distribution strategy depending on the market vagaries and how the market has developed. So, of course, we will be taking very strategic decisions, and they will be taken for the benefit of the consumer, for sure.
So there are quite a few. Now there's one from Anjali Tolani. Many of the hotels have had to lay off associates on account of the pandemic. What kind of external communication can a hotel put on to manage the potential negative press that an activity like that could generate?
I think, you know, it's a very sensitive subject. And again, it's all about the leadership, how sympathetic they are to the situation, how transparent they are in their messaging, and how caring they are with their own employees. Because, you know, you can't have separate communication for your guests and your internal customers, so to speak. So it's the stand you take, which is really your brand beliefs and values. And if you stick by that, people know that if you're fair to employees and you share it with employees and you do the best by them, which is what most brands really do, because not for nothing are Taj, Accor, Hyatt, Marriott known for being the best employers. So I think that the sensitivity with which they communicate that is very, very important. Because, you can have large scale layoffs and, what they call furloughs, and people really get very insecure. But if the management is very transparent about the messaging, I think that way they can kind of be able to communicate the right message.
Deepa, I'd just like to add that,
Yes.
sometimes it's not about what is done, but it's more about how it's done. Clearly there is no substitute for authenticity. And, being transparent is important. Keeping that channels of communication, that internal communication with employees is important. We are going through a pandemic. It's definitely not easy. People have lost jobs. They've gone through significant pay cuts. They've had emergencies. There's been impact on families. I think bearing all that in mind, if communicated well, I think people would understand.
And when you're at the receiving end, it is a different thing. But that's the reality, that I think the world hasn't faced something like this before. So one has to be really sympathetic and really grateful for employees who have worked, like long hours there for you. So I think management, many organizations are very cognizant of that.
And also, it's not because of performance at all. I mean,
absolutely.
So one is sensitive, but with our hands tied behind our back. So having said that, there is a question from one Mr. Abhishek. He says, as a brand, how will you regain the trust of the consumer? Nobody wants to move out for fine dining.
How do you
and no one wants to go out for fine dining.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I can take that.
Yeah.
So obviously the biggest role that communicators can play today is to restore traveler confidence and to communicate to them exactly what they're doing to keep safety, security, SMS, which is safety, masks, and social distancing factored into everything that we're doing. That reassurance and building that trust will become even more important. So therefore, to answer to Deepa's question previously, the role of communicators will become even more relevant because you need to keep engaging with all your stakeholders, assuring them of what you're doing to keep them safe. About going out and not fine dining and having those experiences, we're trying to recreate some of those experiences at your home. Or at people's home, your friends' homes who can have parties, small parties within the number that's allowed. So, I mean, it's a completely different experience, and we're doing that with Qmin, where we are catering to your home and trying to bring Taj at home. And I know the other hoteliers are also doing something like that. And these restaurants will be open, but of course, with minimal capacity and social distancing for a while. And we can just all hope for that vaccine to come out really fast so we can go back to normal. So, yeah.
There's another interesting question, Deepa, from this lady, Sushmita Mondal. As a fresher in the PR industry, will the public relations sector completely merge with digital marketing as everything is happening online now?
I don't see it as separate, Krishnima, so you can take it. Yeah.
I think what I'd like to really say to every budding communications professional who's feeling slightly confused or slightly deflated, I'm genuinely of the opinion that crisis often triggers permanent changes. I think it speeds up the course of history, economic, social, political, and cultural spheres, and they're all defined in times of difficulty. According to me, I think the role of a communication professional has emerged much stronger in these times than it was before the pandemic, before COVID really hit us. And I think we've got to take this opportunity and we've got to really run with it dramatically. I do believe the playbook is going to have different parameters in this new era. It's going to be about consistency and genuine engagement, keeping in mind what's your foremost strategy rather than being an afterthought. And so I do feel that as a communication professional or as an individual who wants to make a career in public relations, it's going to be all about responsible communications. You are really going to be the curator of the truth. And you have to make sure that you're establishing the right message for your stakeholders, for your brand, for your making sure that you're very aligned with your business strategies. And of course, keeping in mind what the society's demands are going to be as we emerge from the crisis. So no, I genuinely don't believe that the role of a communications professional is going to be diminished or marginalized in any way. As a matter of fact, I think they're going to emerge much stronger in the marketing mix than it was earlier, because there's going to be heavy responsibility on how you're going to project your brand in the media today.
So there's another very interesting, you know, we're inundated by questions. I must tell you, ladies, you're really pulling out the questions out of all, I mean, Twitter, Facebook, online, they're coming, all they're pouring. So there's an interesting question from this lady, Kanupriya Bishnoi. So decide between yourselves, raise your hand who wants to take it. There's a gap in perception value in the food delivery received from QSRs and five-star hotels. The expectations are usually not met, as the lure for five-star hotels is not just food, but also the entire experience of dining in a luxury hotel. How do we tackle this?
So, shall I answer this, Deepa?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so Hyatt is known for its F&B offerings. And one thing that we've seen when this pandemic struck, and within a month, we'd started home deliveries across our hotels. Certain hotels, as I said, used delivery partners. Certain hotels used their own mechanism because they were able to do that. And I remember asking some of the hotels, because I run a restaurant, right? So I asked, how many orders are you getting? Because I really wondered at this. And it is amazing the loyalty that guests have to your hotel and to a restaurant, that the numbers are fabulous. Of course, the numbers are not enough that you can not have guests staying in your hotel and just run on deliveries. But still, the numbers are fabulous and people are willing to. So obviously the prices are not the same as sitting in a five-star in your hotel and eating the food. But menus have been reworked, they've been customized. Guests also want to, because we have time, like you were saying, what are you doing at home now? People have time to cook. So we have these packages where you can cook at home. So it's a full kit put together by the chef, all the ingredients, and then you do a video call with the chef. So it's personalized to that extent. And he takes you through the entire process. There's a bread making kit which Hyatt Regency Delhi sends. Andaz has its own curated menu, but it works when people are wondering, are people ordering? I think the loyalty of guests is so much that they are still ordering. They want to have that food. And I think that second thing, that they know that the hotel will take excessive care to make sure that this is safe, clean, hygiene, the packaging, at least you know that much. That, okay, this is going to be very hygienic food that I am getting from a hotel. There's no two things about it. So people do gravitate towards hotels for fine dining orders, as is being said. And a lot of people are ordering breads. I find it amazing, you know, this thing of ordering breads and ordering bread making kits also, because everyone wants to make sourdough suddenly. But it is that safety and comfort that a hotel provides you, that people are veering more towards hotels than to standalone restaurants, because they know that a certain standard of hygiene is definitely being maintained over there.
Okay, there's two questions, both HR related. There is one from R. Alexander. Though it may be just outside the realm of corporate communication and PR, wanted to know about how you're going to go the extra mile in employee communications and giving an EEE, extraordinary employee experience, and especially on the compassionate check-ins by managers on their team's well-being.
So are they talking about how you're going to support your employees' well-being?
Yes, as they're stressed out, I guess they're stressed out.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. I think we want to comment on what's happening currently.
So I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Raj.
Yeah, Rakhi.
So I can answer for IHCL. We've been consistently communicating with our employees because one realized that employees are going to be going through a range of emotions from, anxiety to fear to uncertainty to not knowing what's going on. So our MD, Mr. Puneet Chatwal, he has been communicating consistently from the time lockdown started, actually even before that. Almost every week, every 2 weeks, sending video messages, sending letters with, the tonality of it being reassuring, with empathy, and basically optimism, to ensure that their spirits are up. The other thing that Tata as a group did, and we also did, was to offer counseling, to our employees for mental well-being. And these counselors were made available, for all employees. So these are the kind of things that I think has helped employees to allay their fears and, some of their emotions and anxieties. But the number one thing I would say is to constantly communicate, and it doesn't only have to be the MD level, it can be supervisory level and, the leadership level and the function head level. But it's important to talk to them and to let them know what's going on. And I think we are doing that pretty well. And like I said, even now it continues.
Kind of digital hug and holding hands.
Bhuvnesh, I'd just like to add to this. So for us at Accor, we introduced the Employee Wellness and Assistance Program, which is again a counseling facility which is available to all our employees. Internal communication, like Rakhi mentioned, definitely very, very important. Town halls being hosted both virtually as well as with the limited number of team members at the hotel. I think that also played a very important role. In fact, for Accor India, our COO even hosted, these virtual town hall sessions during this lockdown. So I think all these elements, they go a long way in building that experience for the internal customer, which is the employee, and I think contributes to their belief in the company.
So I have this one question from Sunil Tandon. From aesthetically clean to clinically clean hotels, as most of the brands are tying up with accreditation with hygiene brands, is it short-lived till we get vaccination or part of the new normal?
I think within 2 months of the pandemic, we have the higher cleanliness commitment that we have. But along with that, while we are working with various medical experts and so on, we have a hygiene and well-being leader, which is a trained manager at each property. But this is something that is going to carry on till whether there's a vaccine or not. So this, which is what I'm saying, I think the pandemic has made us innovate and rethink the way we are going to be serving our guests. Things that which might have happened 6 months down the line have already been implemented now and will be the new norm. This is the way you will go forward. Of course, what this gentleman who's written in has said, that this elevated cleanliness, the cleanliness was always there at 5-star hotels. It's now more medically approved, maybe, and it has to follow protocols set down by WHO in regard to this pandemic. But otherwise, the cleanliness levels were always very high. We took it for granted that people knew this. And I think this is where the communication angle comes in, that you need to now start communicating that this is a very clean but luxurious place to come and stay. So that is, I think it's here to stay. I cannot believe any 5-star hotel chain is going to 6 months down the line because there's a vaccine, say, and now we are not going to be doing this. That's impossible.
I think, just to add to what Rajeshri said, it's going to become a manifesto of all hospitality brands. I think it's the vision, it's the promise, And we're known to living up to the promise that we make in terms of sanitization, hygiene, and Rajeshri rightfully said it was always existing. It's just now clinically, from aesthetically clean to clinically clean, so to speak. And just because we want to make sure that we live up to the safety promise. So really, I think the vaccine is going to have no bearing on, whether we're going to change these processes or these implemented operational mechanisms. I think they're going to be here to stay.
And I think more importantly, the customer has changed. Now his priorities have changed, his life choices have changed. He is going to demand it, and we will have to give it. So, they're more mindful, and we have to be mindful of their
Correct.
needs.
I just have 2 quick points on that. Post 2611, like security became, like tangible security became a norm, and it's over 10 years. It's almost 12 years since 2611. It's still there. Yeah. Safety is going to be that new hospitality and new luxury. People are going to demand it. It's going to be present, and it's going to be the new way forward. So that's one point. The second point I want to make is that everyone's talked about hygiene. Everyone's talked about safety and security being synonymous with hospitality. I think we are being very, very conscious that when people come to your hotel, they want to feel hospitality and they want to feel that experience. They're not coming into an ICU ward. So it's all right to be sterile and clean and sanitized and all that, but we're still going to retain that intrinsic differentiator, the warmth, that, that care that we're known for. So it's going to be a balance between the two. And that's also important to communicate. We're not going to lose that touch and suddenly become hospitals.
You shall love the second question, the next question. Don't you feel that the communication of H&H has been overdone and hotels have started looking more as hospitals? What are the communication plans for bringing down the fear factor with all the stakeholders?
No, I specified earlier that people will come to you because you're getting a safe but luxurious place. So that is why people will come to you. And I think that you definitely should not underplay the safety angle right now. Everyone needs to feel safe, and you need to be safe and not be silly about these things and say, oh my God, don't talk so much about safety. Of course, you need to know that a place is safe, but places like Hyatt, Accor, any of these hotel chains provide you a certain luxury, which is what you want to go there for. And that is going to stay.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I think it can even be at the cost of over communicating or reiterating ourselves. But this is an important message. It's the need of the hour. You're dealing with a pandemic. There are expectations, new expectations that consumers have. And I think it is going to be important to talk about it and keep relaying it.
And let me tell you, there's another question from Shotapa Das. What about the hotels and resorts which haven't resumed their operations as yet? And F&B is also shut. How to keep the audience engaged on social media?
Because all of this, what Rajshri and Rakhi and Krishnaman, I think Amisha have said, is all of that engagement that's been happening on social media, bringing your experiences into their world, into their homes, whether it's through learning how to bake, or chefs coming and doing dinners for you virtually, or having a virtual party, or putting out recipes, or bringing your, cuisine home. I think there's a
wellness tips and things like that.
So I think there's been an overdrive also in some way, because there's so much there. So Krishnama.
The only thing I'd like to just add to that is that the product has been shut down, the people haven't, right?
Yeah.
And social media is all about people. It's all about making sure that you're utilizing that abundance of talent that you have within your hotel, simply because there is disposition of time as well. And so we've done so much in terms of customer engagement on social media, like with our chefs, with our bartenders, with therapists. And I think if we really put together our heads and brainstorm, there's a lot we can do around a social media strategy that revolves intrinsically around customer engagement, utilizing the talent that you have. So I don't think the product being shut down is really a deterrent in any way. There's a lot one can do.
And there's this whole off-premise delivery of experiences that brands are doing, which is really remarkable. I mean, like, there isn't a moment you feel you don't have hours in a day to be able to consume all of that, you know?
So
we'll take one last question before we start capping up. This is from Amit Mehta. In the post-COVID world, what are the right strategy brands should, what is the right strategy brand should adopt to communicate as responsible entities and not come across only as opportunistic?
You know, I think it's really about the brand and what it stands for, because most of the brands walk the talk. They don't actually just talk. So it's very important to understand that the brands being represented on this panel are definitely the ones that will, you know, be able to walk the talk. So yeah. I've no doubt that it's not just messaging which is not authentic, which is not, you know, transparent, which is not honest, because without that, there is no way that you're going to be, you know, how can customers see through that? I mean, today, they're in control. You're not in control. So if they're in control, they decide who they're going to be, you know, what choices they're going to be making.
Also, one thing I wanted to point out, something as small as the cancellation policies, right, at hotels, that customers know, that guests know that no one is trying to please them. Cancellation policies have been extended till end July, and every month that we are seeing this carrying on, it is being extended. It is at a cost to the hotel, but no one is trying to scrimp on making the customer not feel pleased at a time when everyone's like, no one wants to lose money, right, as a guest. So I think people, what Deepa said, that hospitality chains are walking the talk. So there's no question of being opportunistic over here, because you know exactly, and in this world of social media, you cannot be saying something and doing something else. It will be, you will be called out on it so quickly that you will be very sorry if you did it. And I think there'll be very few brands in any industry who will be trying to do that, honestly.
I think just one other thing is that we've all been very cognizant of customer sentiment and consumer sentiment, and everything we're doing in terms of communication or marketing or whatever the case is basically reacting to what the consumer really wants at that time, and not being tone deaf, listening to the customer, understanding the sentiment, and then reacting to it. I think we've all, like Deepa said, like Rajshri said, I think the industry, you know, at least the hospitality industry has been very conscious of that.
Also, with the amount of community outreach that every brand has really gone ahead, and, you know, sometimes putting your own health and safety at risk is a very big indication of the fact that the industry is very committed in establishing a very honest connect with the guests and with the consumers. So I think we've established that as an industry. No other industry has really come forward to do so much for the community. So, so there's no question of being opportunistic at all in this time.
I am going to take one more question. This is from a fresher. I think fresher. I would assume fresher. Shinod Joseph. Looking at the minimal staffing currently in many hotels, what could be the opportunities in the near future for hotel management students who have graduated this year, or those who are still pursuing studies? You know, these are kids who are up for jobs.
Surely, I can answer that. Well, this is temporary. It's not going to last forever. The future of this industry is fabulous. Today, it employs about 10 to 12% of India's employment comes from this sector, and it can only go up. The supply will go up. The demand will 100% go up once everything is back to normal. So all I would say is just have a little bit of patience and stay committed to the industry, because it is a great industry.
Thank you all. Before I hand it over to Deepa for the closing, or Deepa, why don't you close, then I'll take it over.
So, you know, I just feel that we've kind of covered a lot of ground today, and I hope that people who were listening were able to pick up some very precious nuggets out of all of the experience, collective experience in the virtual room, so to speak. But it's very, very important that we have a clear strategy, good leadership, credible communication, and obviously backed by stuff like, you know, meticulous sentiment analysis, watching your online reputation, you know, statistics, all of those, and keeping an eye on the consumer, because we only exist because of the customer. And I think all of the brands represented today know that. And I think today we have been faced with the biggest challenge, and I don't think anybody could have imagined it would get so bad. But I'm very hopeful. For me, always the glass is half full. So in fact, full. So I look forward to, you know, reopenings. I look forward to stepping into hotels finally. And I hope that we are able to recover the way the industry recovered post-SARS. So that is my simple message. And over to you, Bhuvnesh.
Just want to say thank you to Deepa. I know Bhuvnesh is going to do it, but I want to thank her especially. It's an honor to be on the panel with Deepa, who's my ex-boss and who I've learned so much from.
Today's work, I love that. I really love that. And I know that everything is in great hands, you know.
Thank you. And
thank you, Deepa.
Moderators and
see all my industry colleagues as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bhuvnesh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhuvnesh, for organizing this.
Yeah, to BW Hotelier.
Yeah, and to BW.
You know, no show is going to be complete with all of you here. All the people, I mean, this is our 10th show, so we've done between 7 to 8 to 9 people each show. So here's 5 of you here. So these shows are beautiful because of all of you, because of all the speakers, all the moderators, and the value that you bring in. And we're at BW Hotelier, we research every show, like you know. We don't jump in from the warm into the cold water and get caught. So we plan for these shows. Having said that, I hope the entire audience has enjoyed this show as much as we have. All of us have, I'm sure all of us. I have tremendously enjoyed it. It's been 95 minutes. I didn't even realize we've already done 95 minutes. And I only pray I can do the show again with you sometime very, very soon, because you bring in so much of value. I mean, imagine me sharing space with Deepa, with Rakhi, Kushnuma, Rajeshri, Amisha. I wish Anjali had come in. I wish Silky had come in. I wish Richa had come in. They're all preoccupied. But next time they said, never say never again. We're coming back soon with all of you again. Thank you all for being there and for making this show beautiful. Thank you.